Hello, welcome to this week's um, EDI Path in Bites. Today we're going to talk about privilege and what is privilege. So, yes, you're allowed to roll your eyes. Yes, you're allowed to feel angry, defensive, uncomfortable. And I would just try to remind you to stop for 1 second and change that defensiveness for curiosity and try to listen with an open mind. So, what is privilege? Privilege is the unearned advantage we get from being part of a dominant group whose needs have traditionally been prioritized. And these can be by gender, race, class, religion, ability, among others. Okay, but what does this really mean? And it basically means that under the same set of circumstances you're in, life would be harder without your privilege. So, an example would be being poor is hard, being poor and disabled is harder. What having privilege is not or does not mean. So, having privilege does not mean you have had it easy. Having privilege does not mean you have not worked very hard. Having privilege does not mean that you have not endured difficulties. And privilege is not something we choose or we earn. Privilege is structural, it's not any one individual's fault, and it's often invisible to, to those of us who have it. Privilege is the other side of oppression. It is often easier to notice the oppression that we experience than the privilege we experience. And many of us experience a combination of privilege and disadvantages. And I'll use myself as an example. I am an immigrant, I am a person of color, and I'm a woman. However, I have a religious background similar to the dominant culture here, which means I can expect to be off on days I celebrate my religious holidays, and I'm able to participate in these traditions where my co-workers who belong to more traditionally marginalized religious communities may have to use their vacation days to participate in these traditions. So, why is it important to understand privilege? And because if we don't understand that privilege makes it easier for some people to succeed, we might think that the more successful group is just working harder. And this is not accurate. We can't control whether we have privilege or not, but we can start becoming aware of our privilege. And when people start seeing why people with traditionally marginalized identities are underrepresented, we can start to address some of the barriers that hold these groups back. It is also very important to remember because people often look at privilege individually rather than systematically. And it is understanding that it is a systemic problem that will make change happen. And yes, I know it is very hard. And it is very hard to admit we have had an advantage that we didn't necessarily earn, especially when we've still had to work so hard. We've sacrificed so much. We believe we made the right choices in our lives at the expense of our own um, other, leisure time. And so it's very hard. But as I said, having privilege does not mean we haven't had to work hard. So I would encourage all of you just to think about what parts of our identities are part of the dominant culture and how life could have been harder without these identities. Thank you.